101. Joining us today and presenting on for your benefit is Judge Jordan Yeager, who will be speaking to you second and talking to you about the mechanics of presenting your case and the interface and how to use it to your advantage in presenting your case to the court. And also joining us from court administration is Dave Gomez, who is essentially the person in charge. I know, Dave, you have a title that isn't exactly as descriptive of what you actually do, but you're certainly the guy that sort of runs the system of the video conferencing for the courts. Dave is going to take us through how to log in, all of the stuff. Most of the stuff you've already just done, but also to show you some of the features that come along with using BlueJeans, and then we'll be able to talk a little bit on the ins and outs of using that in court, maybe some experiences. I use it quite regularly in some hearings that I do, and we'll be able to talk some about that. So with that, I'll turn that over to Dave Gomez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for calling in. I just want to briefly show you a couple little pointers when using BlueJeans and conferencing with the judge. Judge Yeager had reached out to me 2 weeks ago saying that some of the people participating in his videos were having audio issues. And I just want to do a quick little session here where I could show you where to look. Okay, give me 1 second here. So right now, is everyone seeing my screen? John?
Yes, Dave, I can see it.
Okay. So when you, obviously, congratulations, you've joined BlueJeans meeting call successfully because we have you all here on video. From your application, in the upper left corner, you see 3 little bars. When you click down, it gives you these options. The second option from the top is Preferences. I want you to click on that. When you first downloaded the BlueJeans app, it may have asked you some preliminary things like how do you want to join via audio, and if you inadvertently chose, connect through phone, the app will remember that. So when you're in here, if you're having audio issues, go up here, come to Preferences. You'll open up this dialog box here. Under General, under Audio, you're going to see Use Computer. You want to make sure that's selected because anything else will not allow you to have any audio. The second place in this same dialog box, down from General, the third label down is Devices. I want you to click on that. Under Devices, it segregates out the 3 devices you need to successfully make a video phone or video conference call. Camera, it's showing I only have one webcam. It's the webcam that's integrated into my laptop here, and you can see how it's in bold, and it tells me that it's in use. When we click over to Microphone, you see I have 2 options here. Microphone array, I'm using a wired headset from an old iPhone. They're just earbuds with the volume rocker and microphone. I recommend using these because they have good noise cancellation. If you do use a headset like I'm using, on the bottom here you want to make sure Link Microphone and Speaker is selected. It usually will automatically select that by default if it detects you're using that. Lastly is Speaker. This is where your audio comes out. Now if you are looking at my options here, I have quite a bit. These 3 that are in bold are available to me right now because they're integrated on my device. These 2 down here are from devices I've connected to in the past. What I want is headphone. If you're using headphones, if you're using your computer speakers, you'd want computer speakers. And if you see this right here and your speakers weren't your first option, down below it says drag devices in the order you prefer. I would drag speakers to the top position here, and once I release, it would then present the audio through your computer speakers. And once again, if you're using the headset, Link Microphone and Speaker down here. Those are the spots that would be the gotchas. If it's anything above and beyond this, you may want to also look down in your volume level. Make sure your volume level is up. But that's the one area I wanted to point out specifically for that issue. Since most of you signed in successfully here, and from what I heard, we're not having audio issues, I'm going to end this portion here and take it back to Sean.
Dave, I have you pinned. Do you want me to unpin you?
You could unpin me.
Okay. So that was the basics of how to set up your BlueJeans account, or at least your BlueJeans app, to try and help yourself as much as possible. Hold on. Let me try and mute that. Sorry. All right. What you'll notice when these are invited like this is that you get the invitation you can just click on, like you got from the Bar Association today and yesterday, to join into these. When you come into the room, please mute yourself. Muted that one. Sorry about that, everybody. When you get a link, it's easy enough to just click on it and jump into the room. However, you won't always get that. Sometimes when you're jumping in, for example, to a room for the magisterial district justices, sometimes you'll need to know, for example, what one of their district court numbers are. A helpful tip for that is the sheet that was distributed by, I think we got it from Judge Baranowski, and it was sent out to the entire group of the Bar Association. So this is just an example of how to share different things for your computer if you want to use, for example, for exhibits. You can always use this link that you got. This is a great guide that was put together by our district courts for use in connecting with our district courts for preliminary hearings or civil hearings or whatever else. Every court is doing it a bit differently as far as what they're using it for, but this is a pretty comprehensive guide of good tips to consider when you are litigating a hearing via BlueJeans during the district courts. One of the other things that was sent out by Judge Baranowski is the BlueJeans contact list, and as you'll see here, that is a list of, you can actually use these to click on any one of them, and if you have the BlueJeans app installed, it'll take you right to that individual court. It'll take you right to that individual court where, if they're expecting you, you'll be able to get in and conduct the hearing via video. Now, one tip I'll certainly give everybody, if you haven't done that yet, is make sure that the district judge who you're contacting by video is aware that you are attempting to do so. Certainly let the court know in advance that you plan on attending a hearing by video, confirm the meeting link that they're using and the time where you'll be able to do it, so they know to expect you. I think the last thing any of our judges wants is somebody jumping into a hearing or not realizing that the practitioner wanted to do it by video, only to have them pop up on their desk. But that's a pretty handy tool, and the Bar Association just sent out the link for that and this other practitioner's guide earlier today. There are similar contact numbers for for the Court of Common Pleas, but they are all specifically assigned for specific hearings, and they're run through Mr. Gomez. My suggestion would be, and I'll let Judge Yeager talk about this. Judge, if I'm not mistaken, I think the way it's going to work is that if somebody is going to be trying to handle a hearing via video conference with the court, that they'll have to contact the individual judge to do that. I'll let Judge Yeager talk about that and some of the other issues that are popping up. Let me pin it to him so you'll be able to see Judge Yeager. Go ahead, Judge.
All right. Thank you. So thanks, Sean, for pulling this together, and thanks to Greg Nardi at the Bar Association and Melanie Wender with Member Services for getting on this so quickly. Just to answer the first issue that you raised, Sean, any dial-in numbers, any meeting ID numbers will be provided by the court, and they are being used. Separately by individual judges and by different sections of the court. So it's unlikely that there'll be a link to just click through, but people will be getting the meeting ID numbers and in some instances the passwords. So I want to address how BlueJeans is currently being used by the court, how it might be used going forward, and then I also want to talk about the ethical considerations and then some general advice for how to navigate. I want to start with the ethical issues because I really think it frames a lot of why this is such an important session. Rule 1.1 of the Pennsylvania Rules of Professional Conduct, when you look at the comments to that rule, you'll see that one of the obligations for attorneys is to keep abreast of changes in the practice of law, including benefits and risks associated with relevant technology. And if you think about video conferencing technology such as BlueJeans, and you compare it to where we were in the past with e-filing and e-discovery, and frankly, even conference calls, there is just as much of an obligation for an attorney, a practicing litigator, to be comfortable with the ability to conduct business by email now, as there was to be able to do it by type. And if you aren't capable of having your office communicate by email, you're going to run into a problem under Rule 1.1. The same is true with e-filing, with e-discovery, certainly with the ability to do conference calls. And going forward, I think people need to look at the comfort with doing video conferencing and doing hearings by video in a similar way. And the pandemic has obviously brought that to the fore. We have an obligation in the courts to continue to conduct business as much as we can, but we also have an obligation to limit the number of people who are coming to the courthouse and who are increasing exposure all around. And this technology is really essential for striking a balance between those things. And so we have not seen it used a lot. We see the use of video conferencing in criminal court, and we see in drug court that BlueJeans is currently being used. In family court, some of the judges have been using it, and I expect that that's going to continue to expand. Right now, all support matters that are in court are being done by conference call, and we're going to start to shift this week when I'm in support court this week to trying to introduce BlueJeans so that we can be doing, rather than a conference call, doing it by video. There is a substantial improvement in the quality of the record when a hearing is conducted by video rather than conducted simply by phone. Court reporters can benefit by being able to see who's talking and being able to watch the person who's talking and in effect read lips some. And the audio challenges with conference calls is such that as soon as someone starts to talk, it steps on whoever else is talking the word, and it leads to a muddled transcript. So whether you're doing something that's by conference call or by BlueJeans, the biggest bit of advice is that people have to slow down. And even more important than in court, my experience is that we have to just be in a situation where the judge is calling on people and they're only speaking when they're called on. If you start to talk, it disrupts the audio, and you just lose any ability to have a decent transcript. So one of the biggest hurdles that we've had to integrating BlueJeans more is frankly the concern that members of the bar aren't able to do it. When we were out and I was doing conferences in cases in family court, I found that parties, that unrepresented parties, were better able to manage the technology than many of the lawyers who were appearing. And it's frankly can be a bit embarrassing if your client can get on and you can't, or an unrepresented party can get on and you can't. And the biggest challenge I think that people have faced with navigating is what Dave Gomez talked about at the very beginning. It's simply making sure that you've got the setting right for your audio and you've got the setting right for the video. If you can click through, if you can do any number of things that you probably normally do online, like buy something from Amazon, then you can navigate this technology. And if you are running into a problem, what the Bar Association is doing, as I understand it, and Sean can talk about this more, is providing additional backup so that people should spend their time testing out the technology. Try to set up your own conference, or try to just do a conference between you and one of your colleagues or a family member, and make sure that you can be heard, make sure that you can be seen, and do that, at least well in advance of when you're supposed to participate in any court proceeding. And I would do that now, just after this session in the coming days, so that if you get that notice, you're going to be ready to do it. And then you need to, if you do get that notice, you're going to need to make sure that your client's able to do it. And you might need to provide your client guidance. Anybody who's got a smartphone can get onto BlueJeans. In some ways, it's easier on a smartphone than it is on a laptop because there's fewer conflicts with the camera and the audio. And then, Sean, I know that I think that information that you sent around has tips about setup, but it's worth thinking about how you look. So when you are setting up your camera angle, try to make sure that you're in the center of the screen, so that it's not just, like this. I've seen some lawyers show up like this, or Dave Gomez today is in a spot where there's no lighting, and that's the nature of his office environment. But try to get a spot where things are well lit and you can be seen. Try not to be looking terribly up at the camera or terribly down at the camera. Try to set it up pretty much in front of you. The biggest thing that people need to be prepared for if they're conducting hearings by BlueJeans is the exchange of exhibits in advance. And if you do that, there's no reason why you can't do everything that you could do otherwise in court. And that means emailing the exhibits around. Certain judges may want hard copies, certain opposing counsel may want hard copies. But if you email them around, then everybody has them in front of them. And whether you're doing a share screen or not, people have the ability to look at the exhibits. But with the share screen function that Sean demonstrated before, whatever you've got on your computer, you can pull up and you can show a witness. I had a lawyer ask me, how do I subpoena a witness? You do it the same way you would do it if they were showing up in court. You tell them what time they need to appear. You give them the information for BlueJeans, and you get them there. And if they don't show up, they're going to be in the same kind of situation they would be if they didn't show up in court generally. And then you'll be able to share your screen with them if you need to show them an exhibit. So those are the main things I wanted to touch on. Sean, I'll turn it back over to you, and wherever you want to go from here.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate your comments there. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and maybe, Judge, you can comment on this specifically, in regard to the exhibits and emailing them around ahead of time. I just did a deposition last week via video conference, one of these systems. And my client in that case was an elderly woman who really couldn't see on the screen very well. So what we ended up doing, the solution we came up with was, it was luckily we had printed out hard copies of all the exhibits, so that when opposing counsel would identify an exhibit and have it marked, first what we would do is he would share this, or the court reporter in that case would share the screen such that they could show in a PDF editor like this what the individual document looked like. For example, here's the Bucks County guilty plea colloquy. So that you'd be able to show that. But if the witness couldn't see it very well on the screen, it was also beneficial to have a hard copy of that to put in front of the witness so that they could then read from it and be asked questions about it. One of the things that I think we need to keep in mind when we're doing that, and Judge, maybe you can speak to this a bit, is it is a bit different. I think it throws people off sometimes when they're making or protecting the record on a video conference. If you're doing a hearing via video, could you speak at all to any tips you might have as to how practitioners can make sure they're making a proper record or protecting that record?
Well, I mean, I want to, as part of it, first, I just want to acknowledge the issue that you raised, which is that that not everybody, not all parties are able to participate in our court proceedings the same way. And so I do think that we have to be aware that there are some people who aren't going to be able to do this, that they don't have the financial resources, or they don't have the education to be able to navigate some of this stuff, and we have to be able to adapt to that. That's similar to the ADA requirements in terms of accessibility in the court system. So I think we need to be prepared to be flexible, and as part of that, in terms of creating a record, I think it's largely common sense, and if there is something that needs to be said, if there's a document that needs to be presented, if there's an objection that needs to be made, you really just need to make sure that you are able to speak up. I think when we compare it to the challenges that I've had with phone calls, when we've done phone calls in open court, you get people stepping on each other all the time. When people are on video, if you're going to silence somebody's audio, they've got the ability to, in effect, stand up like they would in the courtroom. They got the ability to wave their hand. And so you just need to be cognizant of the different ways that you might have to conduct yourself to, whether it's get the judge's attention or to get, otherwise get your point across.
Thank you, Judge. One of the other things that we discussed here, and I know has come up before in discussions about doing hearings and depositions and things like that from video conferencing, from distancing like this, is how to utilize the technology and leverage the technology to make sure that attorney-client conversations can still occur even though we're all together in a video conference. And one of the things we wanted to do there is talk about breakout rooms. In a few minutes, I'm going to put everybody into separate breakout rooms so you can all see how it kind of gets segregated and you can be apart from others. But Judge, I wonder if you want to talk for a minute or two about the practical aspects of doing that in a courtroom scene and how that might be. Do they have to ask the court? I mean, when they're, especially when they're detailing this with the Court of Common Pleas, generally speaking, whoever's on the system from the court side will be the one who's sort of running the show like I am here for this. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the practicality of that and how that's going to work.
I mean, it's one of the biggest concerns is a recognition that there are times when a lawyer needs to talk to his or her client during a proceeding, and so the use of a breakout room is a way to do that. I mean, I had a situation today where I just had the lawyer and the client text with each other, while we were in the middle of the proceeding, as a way of communicating, because they weren't in the same place. And the client had something that she wanted to make sure was said. And so the client spoke up and said that she wanted to say something, and I basically turned to the lawyer and said, how do you want to proceed? And that was how we proceeded, was to at least give them a chance to text. But the use of a breakout room is really even a better solution when you're using BlueJeans, because the court, whether it's being done by the tip staff or the minute clerk in the courtroom, or the judge, him or herself, can push two people into a room where they're private and they can't be heard. And it's a simple technique, and Sean, you'll demonstrate it for folks. And then people can communicate in there. There's an opportunity then for the mediator, the moderator, to say, we're going to end the breakout session, and close that meeting room. And people get a little warning on the screen that the clock is ticking down, and they know that they need to be careful about what they're saying, because they're going to be live with everybody else momentarily. That also allows for lawyers to conference. So the courtroom can set up a room in the moment to allow two lawyers to go and speak, or it could allow for a sidebar between the judge and the lawyers, so that it's outside the view of the clients, and so that you can have that conversation too. So do you want to demonstrate that?
I will. Before I send everybody into the breakout rooms, I will. This is a free CLE. We're going to have two code words that you need to write down and note on your CLE document. The first word is Tuesday, as in today's day of the week, Tuesday. Please make note of that. With that, I'm going to send everybody just randomly into some breakout sessions. What you'll notice when you get there is you'll be in a room with about 9 or 10 other people, but it won't be the full 85 or 90 people that we have here. If you want to unmute yourselves and discuss and just see how the room works for a minute or two, you can do that. And then I will close all the breakout sessions and we'll all come back into this room.
Time's up.
I'm muting you all as you come back in. I believe we have everybody. Everybody should be out of the breakout rooms now. So I know in visiting in a couple of the rooms, a few of you had some problems getting your mics set up, and there were some questions about what the utility of a breakout room is. The simple answer is a breakout room allows 1, 2, or however many members of a video conference that you want to have their separate private conversation that can't be heard by the members who don't join the breakout room. It's beneficial if you and your client, for example, are in a different place when you're doing a hearing, or if you have co-counsel, for example, and you want to discuss strategy, or if the attorneys want to get together and discuss settlement independent of the ears and eyes of the judge. Those are all possible benefits of the breakout room. In looking at our listing here, we've had about 85 people join us. I've been looking for other questions and comments to come through. Judge Yeager, did anything else occur to you as we were going through that you might want to discuss?
Well, one question that we got, we tested it out, and we had one participant who I won't out, who couldn't get the microphone working, and it may be that it was the person was using a desktop, and so the webcam for the desktop, it may have been that the correct microphone wasn't selected. So, having an opportunity to test it out in advance so that you could sort through that and ask for help and find somebody who can help you solve that if you're running into that problem is really essential. Don't give up on it, because it's a simple problem and you just might need somebody to help walk you through it. We got a question about what's the best technology for a client to use to join in. And people may have different views on it. My view has been that If you're working as a lawyer and you're going to be doing it regularly, doing it from a laptop or a tablet is probably the best thing. If you're for clients who aren't going to be doing it regularly, my sense is that people have the least problem when they're doing it from a cell phone. There seem to be fewer conflicts with which microphone it might be, although you might have to pick the Bluetooth versus just the regular phone mic. It also allows people to more easily move into a quiet place, to adjust the lighting, which are all important, particularly the ability to be in a quiet place. There is a concern with clients. I did one with two unrepresented folks where, one person was out on their front step and the other person was in the car. And they might not have been able to effectively do the hearing otherwise. So having the ability to do it on the phone was a good thing for them. The challenge is minimizing background noise and interference.
Judge, there was a question that came through on the chat, and I have my own ideas on it, but I think it's better handled by you first. What if a witness needs to mark up a document virtually through this? How would you suggest handling that?
I haven't had to deal with that yet, but my understanding is that there's a good amount of third-party software that provides probably the best. I don't know that there's integration on marking up directly into in the BlueJeans app. You could certainly we utilize and I help some folks get a case settled, by having documents scanned with your phone, which is very easy now. So what you could have somebody do is mark up the piece of paper and then quickly scan it in with their phone and then screen share. It's a couple steps removed from what we would normally hope to be able to do in the courtroom, but it's at least a way of navigating it if the third-party software isn't available.
And in that regard, Judge, one of the things that comes to mind is it's much easier to do that when the witness is in the same room as their attorney, because then they can mark up on the attorney's equipment. If they're on separate equipment, it may be a lot harder. So if you anticipate, my suggestion would be that if you anticipate the need to mark up specific documents or specific exhibits, that you maybe make prior arrangements to do that using that method. Just to give you some idea of some of the apps that Judge Yeager was talking about. So I'll share my screen with my desktop at work here. So this is a PDF editing software called Nitro that's readily available. It's like a different version of Adobe, and you could just do things here by highlighting different areas, and it's not doing it now, but it's supposed to highlight. I don't have it set right because I wasn't anticipating doing this, but with software like this, you can certain things or circle certain things or insert certain things digitally, share your screen so everybody could see it like this, and then I guess to make the record, what you might have to do is email that to the court reporter and to all counsel to make sure everybody has their same copy of what was marked up. Again, protecting the record is going to be important.
Now, when you are violating civil rights to the extent of one losing his or her life, and there needs to be criminal accountability, and that oftentimes happens in a few cases, but through police unions, which has got kind of a weird dynamic. I don't think I was supported by the FOP back in 18. We're here defending some of those practices.
Are you just able to do a full mute?
And resist accountability.
Sorry about that, everybody. Somebody unmuted themselves, and it sounded like I had the television on in the background. Judge, any thoughts on the comments that just came up?
On the police immunity issue that was on the television?
No, on the marking the documents as a practical matter.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add. It is going to be challenging because of the need to share it and get it integrated. Some courts with sophisticated Elmo systems where you can mark something up there and then have it reproduced and printed out. in some ways we have more ability to do that kind of thing using the kind of third-party apps that you've talked about than you would, frankly, with a physical exhibit, a piece of paper in the courtroom, where you can, in effect, you could share it real time in front of everybody. When you're in a courtroom that doesn't have, an Elmo type of device, you've got a harder time doing that.
One of the things that I will note is that not every court, if we have practitioners that are going to different counties, not every court is using the same system. Bucks County's choice of system is BlueJeans. I was just in contact with a district attorney from Montgomery County who advised me that the Montgomery County district courts are using a separate product that's made by Avaya, who is a video conferencing standalone unit manufacturer, and theirs is a different type of app than this, and it's a different type of program than that. And then you have to get the connection information from the individual courts that way. So please keep in mind that you need to know what system you're on. Some people are using Microsoft Teams, some are using BlueJeans like this, some are using Zoom, some are using some others. So if you're trying to join a Zoom meeting on BlueJeans, obviously it's not going to work. So make sure you're using the correct app. What we're talking about today is BlueJeans because that's the chosen provider of all of our district courts and all of our courts of common pleas. So this has been sort of a primer on how to use that, but every court system will be a bit different. Is Dave Gomez still with us? Dave, do you have anything to add or anything to suggest?
Yes. Earlier when I was in a breakout session with Judge Yeager and a couple other participants, two things. The person who formerly had no microphone now does. Apparently, the application on Mac.
You can say my name.
I didn't.
Congratulations, Barton.
Yeah.
Apparently, the application on Macs is slightly different, and where the drop down for preferences is not there on the Mac application. I'm going to have to look at that personally. Unfortunately, I don't have a Mac at my disposal, but I want that just to have for future reference for information because I know there's a lot of Mac users out there. Secondly, to trace back, I've seen a couple comments in the chat there about markups and the such. I know we've showed everyone here how to share a screen, and depending on what device you're on, sharing a screen can be it's okay, but if it's on a small device, you have a small screen, it's almost incomprehensible. I was on a meeting 2 weeks ago with the courts down in Texas that did the first civil trial where they had all the jurors appearing via video. And the way they shared their exhibits is basically set up a Dropbox account. That way you could drop the exhibits in their like native file format, like a PDF or whatnot. And to whomever needs to look at it, if you share the link to that section where your exhibits are at, you could reference them by name. When they click on it, they're not seeing a shared screen. They're seeing the document, which gives them some leverage to manipulate whether they want to zoom in and zoom out to read a specific spot. And as far as markup, there's third-party tools that can allow you to mark up certain documents, and that and then that person can just put it back into the Dropbox for all parties.
And there is an annotation feature in BlueJeans, but I don't think it allows you to annotate outside documents that aren't being displayed in the BlueJeans format. So, and plus, even if you were, it wouldn't necessarily save those on the BlueJeans format if you're recording it, for example. So you're probably better off using those third-party editing software tools to do that and then share it with all parties.
Correct, Sean.
All right. Dave, anything else for anybody?
No, not necessarily. I mean, once again, congratulations to everyone calling in successfully. Minor hiccups. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat right now. Otherwise, it's back to you, Sean.
All right. And Judge Yeager, how about you? Do you have any other last thoughts?
Well, there's been a couple other questions in the chat. Do you want me to address some of those?
I've been going through them. If you'd like to read them and go through them, certainly be my guest.
Well, one of the questions is simply about how many have been conducted, and I know Judge Duple is on, and I'm not sure how many he has done. I don't have a hard count on how many I've done. And mostly they've been conferences during the time that we were out, and I was concerned about about notice and ability to participate. So we conducted them as somewhat of a hybrid between a conference and a hearing in some respects to see whether we could address the issues. And it was primarily in cases where there were unrepresented and unrepresented party or unrepresented parties, but probably about a dozen. One of the things to keep in mind is that when we send out a notice, we also include the call-in number so that there's a backup if somebody isn't able to get the full video component of BlueJeans to work. So at a minimum, you have the ability to use BlueJeans as a conference call line. So we provide that number so that if people run into a problem, they can at least dial in. And I think that addresses what I saw.
Thank you. There was one question that came up, whether a user of the system can capture or take essentially a screenshot of what's on their screen. The answer to that would be yes. If you have the proper software, you would be able to capture what you're seeing on the screen and then manipulate it and use it later as a JPEG. The administrator of the account that you're using, if they have the right level of account, can also record it. As you probably heard when you first joined on, I've been recording this entire session so it can be used back as a video CLE for the Bar Association for other members because we're limited to attendance here. But the simple answer to the question is yes. If you're appearing on a video conference of any kind and the people on the other end have the correct software, they can capture your image and use that if they so chose. I have never encountered that, but I can't deny that it's a possibility. All right. Well, I think that's a good place where we've gone about 50 minutes. I think that's the right amount of time for us. The second code word you will need for your CLE paperwork is evening. First one was Tuesday, second one is evening. So please make a note of that for your CLE credit. With that, I would like to thank both Judge Yeager of the Court of Common Pleas of Bucks County and Dave Gomez from Court Administration of Bucks County for joining us today. It's been very educational and helpful, I'm sure, to people who don't necessarily use the BlueJeans interface very often like you two do, so we appreciate that. I'd like to send my thanks to Melanie Wender, who put all this together on behalf of Member Services to set that up and talked to Judge Yeager about it and made sure we had a good presentation to put together for our members to help them in integrating this new technology into their practices. So, Melanie, thanks to you and the Member Services Committee for helping us put this together. And, thank you to the Bar Association. As you can see, I'm here at the Bar Association. We are open with appropriate CDC guidelines in place, but conference rooms are open if necessary, if you need them for anything you might use them for. I was talking to Executive Director Nardi earlier today about some functions that are already coming back online here at the Bar Association, following along with strict CDC guidelines as we move toward green and beyond. So goodbye and good evening from the Bucks County Bar Association, and thank you all for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.